I can only imagine how the last 12 hours have been for you.
Yes, I haven't slept yet.
Okay.
I haven't slept yet.
We were just seeing you've been everywhere. First, let's talk about who's reached out to you. I know you've been Good Morning America, Today Show.
Today Show.
Good Day Philadelphia.
CNN, the Washington Post, any news outlet you can think, BBC.
Yes.
Any news outlet you can think of, they have been calling because I don't think anyone expected this story to end this way.
No.
I certainly didn't.
Oh, no.
Nobody did. No, I went to sleep.
Certainly didn't, you know. I don't know, Q. I think it feels a little surreal, you know, to know that you had a hand in, listen, a few of my friends had a group chat going.
Yeah.
Earlier in the day. Like, do you guys see this going on? Like, you see this going on? We were all just talking about it.
Because it exploded in Philadelphia and around the country. 6 Philadelphia police officers shot. Right. None of them, killed. We're like, this is going crazy. This is in North Philly. Did you know at the time that this was indeed Maurice Hill, your client?
No, I didn't. And that's why a couple of my friends, we were in our group men's chat, and we were just talking like, yo, this is crazy. Cities like Mad Max. And we were just talking guy stuff.
Yeah.
Had no idea that this was someone I knew, much less someone I had represented previously.
Yes.
And then there was a lull in the action, so to speak. And so I go to do some other stuff and had the TV on mute. And at 8:30, Maurice calls my phone. Directly, he just calls my phone.
When you see the number, because you've had relationship with him, did you anything in your mind like, oh no, is this? No,
because it was a different phone number.
Okay.
It was an out-of-state phone number.
Okay.
And when he called, And I'd spoken to his sister earlier in the day. She never, there was no indication that he was involved.
Yeah.
And he called and he just said, yeah, Unc, it's me. And just something about the way in which he sounded, I suppose you got to be of the culture,
Yeah.
Something about the energy in that, yeah, Unc, it's me. He sounded very defeated, very deflated. And I just said, are you kidding me? Are you
Yeah.
Are you ishing me?
Because you have a different relationship with Maurice.
Correct. And, it's the kind of relationship where I could verbally chastise him about, some moves he's making that I wasn't particularly fond of.
Okay.
Sort of like an uncle would do to a nephew.
Yeah.
And so when he said it, I just, Reese, are you, we call him Gruff. Gruff,
Yeah.
are you serious? So the first 30 seconds were a tongue lashing.
Okay.
And then it instantly went into, well, you got to come out of there. You know that you have to come out of there. And he kept saying, they were shooting at me first. I said, well, first or second, my man, they're going to kill you.
Yeah.
However it went, whatever your story might be.
What was Maurice's tone when you're talking to him? Was he scared? Was he aggressive?
He wasn't aggressive.
Okay.
He sounded poignant. He sounded very deliberate in what he was saying. And he sounded like he was, listen, there were a multitude of people coming at him at once. A hostage negotiator, Commissioner Ross, the district attorney himself, Mr. Krasner, and myself. We had at one point we had a 4-way conversation. Everybody has a different agenda in that stew of people. He would not let the conversation move off of I want to get out of this thing alive.
Got it.
And so he even kept redirecting the conversation to the place where it needed to be. Listen, he was concerned about the kind of things I would think a person would be concerned about in his position, his family, his son, who was a teenager, his daughter, who was just born, who was 3 days old.
Oh, my goodness.
These are concerns that you'd expect a guy to have. Now, these are not concerns the police commissioner would have. These aren't concerns the hostage negotiator cares about. But I understood, just maybe from a cultural perspective, I understood what what he was saying.
Yeah.
And there were times I had to get a little coarse with the people who were on the phone. Shut up and let them talk.
Wow.
It got like that. We had to even put one of the parties who I mentioned off the phone because the energy wasn't right.
Who'd you have to put off the phone?
The hostage negotiator. I had to, my man, I need you off this phone because he's talking to me. You're complaining to the news that he's answering and hanging up, but he's talking to me for 2 hours. So how about you excuse yourself from the conversation? Let me and him talk.
Yeah. We're talking to Shaka Johnson, lawyer of Maurice Hill. Maurice Hill shot 6 police officers here in Philadelphia yesterday. Shaka, thank you for even coming in
and
talking to us. So at what time did you get the call and you're at home and then you're on the scene? How long did that take?
Maybe 3 hours or more, because I honestly thought this would go on. I've never been in a situation like this. And while I was a police officer, I'm not hostage negotiation trained. So I didn't know if this was something you'd wait a guy out, until the next day, or right. So I didn't, think to insert myself into the scene. Hell, you inserted me by calling me. Yeah. So I'm not about to come down here to the scene. I didn't ask you to call me.
Right.
So I was happy doing my work over the phone, trying to talk him, into coming out. At some point, the conversation went to, I can get Mr. Krasner on the phone for you. I have his phone number. I can get him on the phone. I got Larry Krasner on the phone for him. We had a 3-way conversation.
The DA.
Correct. Larry said, listen, if you like, I can get the commissioner on the phone. All right, get him on the phone. And that's a 4-way conversation. And that went on for a while.
Yeah.
And, the tenor was, you have to come out. You have to come out. And they would get off the phone, or his phone would die. He'd call me back. And then we talked for 20 or 30 minutes about a multitude of things, about a bunch of things. And we even shared a laugh here and there. And not that anything about this situation was funny, but I made it my business to engage him in a way that I knew to engage him. I know the things he finds humorous. So I talked to him in that vein to soften him up a little bit, to make him a little bit more malleable to the notion of walking out of your own volition.
Was there any moment that Maurice said to you, you know what, Unc, you know what, Shaka, I'm about to end it?
There were a couple times he said that.
What was your response?
I had a couple different responses depending on when he said it. When he said it, one time I told him, listen, well, I'm going to turn the damn TV off, and I'm hanging up my phone, and I'm powering it off, and I just wake up in the morning and see that you got killed. I'm not sitting on this phone with you while the police come in and do you. I'm not going to be on the phone. You're not going to scar me that way, right? You're not going to call me and allow me to hear you get killed. Right, so this is how you playing it. I'm hanging up, and I'll turn off the TV. I'm not going to watch it either. But just remember this. I'm not going to say your son's name, but remember this. You got a son out here, my man, and you are going to put into all eternity, you're getting killed on nationwide TV for your boy to have to grow up with. And that sort of conversation would bring him back center. Not even so much the newborn, because she's 3 days old. It was his teenage son. You look at the things you're putting into motion for your boy to have to deal with when you're gone.
So reportedly, he got served with a warrant. How did getting served with a warrant escalate to 6 police officers getting shot?
So I don't even know if he was the target of the warrant. I don't know if he happened to be at a particular location that they were doing a search warrant at, and he was just there. I made sure I didn't even address him on those things, because when you're having this communication, although we were talking on cell phones, you have to know that the government is outside listening, because they were tapping into our phone calls intermittently. Wow. We'd hang up, and then restart the call. So I never engaged him in, the backstory. I was concerned at that point. I knew that all the officers were non-life-threatening injuries. And so I made it my business at that point to make sure that he wasn't killed on TV in front of his kids, in front of both his sisters. I just wasn't going to allow that to happen.
Now we're hearing that, we're talking to Shaka Johnson, lawyer of Maurice Hill, shot 6 police officers in Philly yesterday. We're hearing that you had a deadline that you had to get them out of the house by.
Right.
Can you walk us through that?
So let me say, for starters, Q, I'm often critical of the Philadelphia Police Department for a lot of reasons. But I think if you can be vocal and loud with it when you're criticizing, you have to be as loud and as vocal when they do something worth applause. Yeah. And I think that the way they handle this, with respect to the amount of patience that they showed, my hat goes off, because I was dealing with the leadership. I was dealing with Commissioner Ross. My hat goes off to Commissioner Ross, because the energy. I was on SWAT in my previous career. So I'm telling you, as I walked around those other SWAT officers, it was palpable they wanted this to go another way.
Okay,
you understand? Because their brethren and sister officers had been hurt, injured. They didn't know the extent of their injuries, and I think that all parties figured this was going to end with your just desserts, Yeah. And Commissioner Ross held them back, allowing us to continue the dialogue. But at some point he said, listen, this can't go on all night, I'm going to give you till 11:45.
And what time did he say?
11:15. He told me 11:01. He told me I had until 11:05 for a certain thing to happen on the telephone. That happened by 11:05.
Well, can you tell us?
Just a conversation with Maurice. I needed him to commit to at least one thing. He committed to it by 11:05. There was a little bit more back and forth, and I'm talking and getting dressed, right? I'm talking and getting dressed because I see now I'm going to have to go there.
Okay.
Maurice is saying, I need you here. I told Commissioner Ross, Commissioner, he'll come out, but I have to be there. And hear my words. I don't want to be there, but I have to be there. And if my presence is going to make this man come out unharmed, I'm getting dressed right now. The commissioner said, he didn't ask me how far my ride was.
Yeah.
He just said, if you can be here by 11:45, I'll give you to 11:45. That a minute later. And then, I'm going to have to turn my guys loose to do their professional business.
Wow.
Right.
And so I explained that to Maurice. Listen, man, we got deadlines. We got bookends now.
What does Maurice say when you say, dude, I have until 11:45 to get you out of this house alive?
And he was saying, you get here by 11:45. Not you have to come out by 11:45. Maurice was hearing that as you get here by 11:45 then, because I'm not making a move until I see you, because I know you're not going to let them do me dirty, with you standing right there. Because we had been on the phone with Mr. Krasner earlier, he said, can you get Larry here too? I said, I'll try. When I got to Broad and Fairmount, I called Mr. Krasner and asked him, listen, how far are you?
Yeah.
He said, what's up? I told him what's going on. I'll be right down. I'll come lights and sirens. So he came, shortly thereafter my arrival, he was there on scene as well. But when I got there, they ushered me through and gave me a bulletproof vest to put on, because they weren't sure if he was going to start taking shots again.
Yeah.
They shrouded me in other officers who also had on bulletproof vests, and then walked me all the way to their command center. They allowed me to use their police megaphone so that he could know I was really outside and not just on the phone.
Yeah.
Now, all the while, I have him on the phone, and I've got him on the police megaphone. He never hung up the phone with me.
Yeah.
But I talked over the megaphone to let him know I'm truly outdoors. I'm right outside. At some point, he said, well, let me FaceTime you. I said, all right, well, let's try that. But I think they were doing something with the signal because the FaceTimes would never go through.
Got it.
But he was trying to FaceTime with me. And at some point, I said, man, listen, we had a time. At this time, it's like 11:53, and tensions are running high. It's palpable.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Ross said, Shaka, I need you to stand back. And I still have Maurice on the phone.
Yeah.
They took me away from the door, and I'm still talking to him like, nephew, don't do this. Don't do this, my man. Don't do this to your kids. Don't do this to me. Like don't have me out here. You have me out here now. I'm going to watch you get peppered to death.
Was it just I get it, but was there a difference where you thought like, man, he may come out here and still do something?
No.
Why did he walk out of the house? Why did Maurice Hill walk out of the house with a gun visibly on his waistband?
I don't know why he did that.
When you saw, what was your thought when you saw him walk out of the house? You've been talking to him for a couple hours. You've known him for a while.
Right.
You were on SWAT.
Yeah, you see him with a visible gun. He has no shirt on.
Correct.
Gun visible. What was your feeling at that point?
What I thought was, boy, these officers are trained well, because they showed some great restraint. Prior to him coming out with a gun, I had concerns about them having a little bit of a hair trigger,
Yes.
And then to come out with a gun and still exercise that level of restraint, that's exactly what I thought to myself. These men, at least these men on SWAT, who are under the direct tutelage of Commissioner Ross, have been trained properly and have exercised, in this particular instance, a great deal of restraint.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very honest.
Yeah,
he would have came outside and I was one of them cops. I probably would have popped him.
Yeah, but it could have happened.
Yeah. It could have happened.
He gets out. You are able to have a private moment with Maurice Hill,
right?
Correct.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about that?
I know he'd heard me on the megaphone. He'd heard me obviously on the cell phone. But I wanted him to see me. And I wanted to I gave him a hug, but not a hug like I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Like damn, we made it through this.
Yeah.
That kind of hug. It was that kind of hug. It wasn't a high five kind of hug.
Yeah.
It was put your blood and sweat on me for a minute, and I put my forehead on his forehead. And that's what it was. you might not, breathe free air again. I mean, this is the real conversation that he and I were having.
Yeah.
So from a human place, that's what that was about. We talked about some stuff that he and I would keep with he and I, and then I told him I will see you in a couple of days. You're going to get processed into the jail, and what's understood doesn't need to be said. And that's exactly how the conversation ended, because he and I know what needs to be done. We don't have to have a long dialogue about it. I literally said what's understood doesn't need to be said.
Yeah.
And gave him another hug and went my way.
How many years is he looking at? Do you know?
Listen, the rest of his life. Let's be frank about it.
It's a dumb bug.
Let's be frank about it, right? I could give you the textbook answer. Well, this charge holds this and this holds that. But if you think that any judge in Philadelphia or any federal judge will allow a person who shot 6 cops to see the light of day again, you're sorely mistaken. So obviously the man is in the fight for his natural life.
Wow. Shaka Johnson. Man, I know you've had a long...
The CSI.
Yeah, I know you've had a long night. We thank you for coming in.
Sure.
Talking to the people of Philly, Jersey, and Delaware. Shaka Johnson, again, the lawyer of Maurice Hill, who shot 6 police officers here in Philadelphia. Thank you for your time, bro.
No, Q, thank you for having me, man.